Right, we are now with Nigel Nelson and Piers Pottinger in the studio. Where do you want to start this morning, fellas?
Let's talk about Wes Streeting.
OK.
Because he's turned the media around today. He had quite a difficult interview, I thought, earlier this morning, where he was asked a very straightforward question. Look, he'd already said Labour will not do what the Tories are doing. They're saying they're going to cut another 2p off national insurance. Fine. Then he was asked, would you prioritise spending on the NHS for tax cuts? Waffle, waffle, waffle. You can't ride both horses. It's one or t'other, Nigel.
Yeah, and I think spending on the... He's going to be the new health secretary, and it is spending on the NHS. I mean, there have been areas where they've got into some difficulties over this, over things like the 100,000 nursery places they're talking about. We're still waiting to hear some detail about where you find the 40,000 staff to make those nursery places work.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to that stage in the campaign where everyone sort of shoved their policies out there. They're now being looked at. But what we need now is the detail to find out exactly how to make them work.
And look, and we saw the row yesterday with Bridget Phillips and the Shadow Education Secretary, then Keir Starmer, slapping down Emily Thornberry.
Yes.
She let the cat out the bag, didn't she, when she said, of course, state school class sizes will have to grow in the short term because of the VAT hike on private schools, which will go into force immediately. It's one of the first things they're going to do. And she was slapped. She was telling the truth.
Well, probably she made a mistake, in fact. Because
telling the truth?
No. In fact, it wasn't her brief, and so she was saying something that we don't know. I mean, I think if you take the tax on private school fees, we don't know what the result is going to be. And the evidence would show that money doesn't make a huge difference to parents sending their kids to private schools. So the original report, which is all based on, over the last 20 years, that the real terms increase in fees has been 55%, 7% of kids go to private schools. That hasn't changed in that time. So money doesn't seem to have been a major factor there.
But 20% overnight, that's a gradual increase of a few percent every year. 20% overnight is just not doable for various families across
the country. Well, the question is whether it's doable or not. I mean, the study was by the Institute of Fiscal Studies, that they were the ones who came up with the report all this is based on. Now, we don't know the result. It's about the non-dom tax. The non-dom tax won't work if everyone leaves. This tax won't work if all the parents withdraw their kids from private schools and they collapse. The evidence so far is that isn't going to happen.
Well, Nigel says that. Piers, we had a head teacher on today. We had one on yesterday, both from one in Gloucester, very multicultural city, one from, I think it was Epsom yesterday, Ascot, both saying it's going to have a detrimental effect on school numbers because parents are indicating they'll have to take children out.
About 10%.
Well, they already are.
Yeah.
And, I mean, 2 private schools have already had to close. And, of course, money matters. And this is just a spiteful and ridiculous socialist move for no reason at all other than spite. And it shows
and 1.5
what the Labour
billion.
Party are really like. And in fact, today, the biggest bombshell, which has gone unnoticed, is Dame Harriet Baldwin, who is the head of the Treasury Select Committee, who has pointed out in a brilliant piece in the Telegraph that Labour are basing their stealth tax increases on the IMF recommendations that are not widely known. And these include things like capital gains tax being put on selling your first residence.
Right.
Which would hit the housing market in an enormous way.
Really would.
Penalising drivers for putting a tax on them for driving at all. Based per mile, all kinds of stealth taxes. Yeah. These are the things the Labour Party do not want you to talk about. And also huge increases in capital gains tax, equating that to income tax, which would be a colossal rise. These are the taxes that Starmer does not want to be asked about.
Yeah.
And when asked, if you notice, when he was asked would he raise capital gains tax the other day, he refused more than once to answer the question.
I'm glad you raised that because The Guardian reported last week, and you'd have seen it, Nigel, that that Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, will bring in 10 to 12 tax rises in September, October, when she does her budget. And a lot of them around capital gains tax. It seems that Harriet Baldwin has put flesh on the bone and told us what they're going to be.
Yeah, but we
tax on you selling your first home, for God's sake.
Yeah, well,
get people on the property.
Well, first of all, as we speak here, that is not Labour policy.
Well, we'll see.
Yes, I'm sure there will be little things. I mean, what the Guardian was...
It's a big thing if you're selling your first home.
It is indeed, but there could be a number of smaller taxes where you get into a kind of big pot at the end of it. Labour are not going to raise the main taxes, VAT, income tax, and so on, as we know. We've heard about the tax rises on non-doms, the windfall tax on the oil giants, and the private schools tax. I think that we're getting to a stage now of trying to pretend we know what the other side is going to do.
But hang on, do you want to challenge you on this? Because you say they're not going to raise the taxes. They are going to raise income tax because they are not going to lift the freeze on...
Nor are the Tories.
Yes, but so we can't say Labour aren't going to raise tax because they are, and so are the Tories.
Yes, I mean, no one has changed that fundamental thing about thresholds. Thresholds stay till 2028.
Which means more and more people are going to pay tax.
Yeah, you're talking about 4 million people paying tax for the first time, 3 million will be paying more tax.
Yeah.
That's perfectly true. What we don't know is about these taxes, and I think that the important thing now, this is manifesto week, what voters have to do is look at each manifesto and see which they think is the most realistic at the end of the week.
But always with Labour, you have to look at the wording, which they choose very carefully. Starmer talks about not taxing working people more. What he means by that is he's going to tax successful people who've got some money more, because the one thing the Labour Party cannot bear are successful people. That's who they want to penalise. And it's, again, pure spite.
Yeah,
nothing else.
The mask slips on this private school policy and the fact that they're so embedded with it.